afternoon. It is your Wednesday. It is hot and humid outside right now, but we are looking ahead to storm risks increasing as we head into the evening hours. So we remain in this weather impact alert for the heat now and the storms coming in later this evening. So in the interim, before the storms develop, it's all about being smart about the heat. Hydrating, limit overexerting yourself outdoors, and also later on having a way to get warnings as you're out and about later on this evening, because skies right now are showing dry conditions, but later on we are expecting thunderstorms back in the mix, and some of those storms could potentially become strong or severe. So we're looking ahead to that. Outside right now in Atlanta, though, it is hot. It's also very humid outside, but the clouds have not grown into tall thunderstorm clouds quite yet. We have the clouds starting to grow a little bit. It's hot and it's also humid. We're at 94, which we've been kind of stalled at 94 the last couple of hours. That humidity right now at 43%, but the feels like temperature currently 98. We did peak with a heat index of 100 earlier this afternoon, and we peaked at 107 in Athens for the heat index. Currently 103 there, 105 in Covington. Rome is 106, and look at Dalton, Georgia. 111 degrees for that current heat index. So very hot and humid outside right now, and the area remains under a heat advisory. You can see the expansive spread of that heat dome right now. It's at its most intense along the mid-Atlantic down through the Carolinas, where some records are again in jeopardy today. But for us here in North Georgia, we're not going to make it to our record high of 100. But it will be feeling like it is at least 100 for parts of the afternoon. So heat advisory until 8 o'clock this evening, that heat index up to 110. But what we're looking ahead to is the storm risk growing for later on today. The atmosphere is fueled with a lot of energy. We've got so much heat and humidity that's built up. That's a lot of fuel for thunderstorms. And if we see those storms develop, and when we do, they're going to have the potential to produce some severe weather conditions. So there is currently a level 3 risk of severe weather for the eastern side of the Atlanta metro, out into Athens, east all the way through Lake Oconee and out towards Augusta. For Atlanta, we're in a level 2 risk of severe weather. And then in that northwestern corner of the state, it's a level 1 risk of severe weather. So it'll really be a damaging wind threat for us. The strongest of thunderstorms could also produce a little bit of hail. And I'll show you this graphic from the Storm Prediction Center, which actually breaks down each of those components and where the risk is greatest across the state. And you can see a low end chance of hail. It's not a setup this time of year to see a tornado risk, and I don't see that playing out for today. But it's these damaging winds which are at its highest threat across East Georgia. In fact, when we talk about those damaging wind gusts, some of them could be 60 miles per hour, but there's enough fuel in the atmosphere to where some of these damaging wind gusts could be 70 or even 80 miles per hour. So that's why we are paying very close attention to how those storms initialize and begin to form. And this graphic right here shows you just how much fuel that we're working with for these thunderstorms this afternoon and evening. This is for those of you who might be, excuse me, familiar with weather terms. This is CAPE, or convective available potential energy. So we're looking at thunderstorms, how much upward motion, how much upward force can they get, basically, how much fuel is there, that available potential energy for them to grow. And we have very high CAPE, a lot of CAPE to work with. So we're going to be working with all that energy for storms to quickly grow taller as they develop. And then once we lose the daytime heating, the CAPE numbers start to come down a bit. So that's very high end on our scale. Radar right now, we did have a couple of isolated thunderstorms popping earlier today. A lot of those have kind of fizzled themselves out. Still tracking a few showers there. Gordon, also Gilmer County, a couple of showers right now. If we zoom out that radar, you can see up across North Carolina, there are some thunderstorms developing, a little topographically lifted or up against the mountains. It helps to lift those showers and thunderstorms. We've got a few severe thunderstorm warnings on the map as well, from Asheville down into, that's Clay County, North Carolina right there. We've got a strong thunderstorm in northern Clay County, which is part of our 11Alive viewing area. It's right there on the county line. But we're watching to see the next pulse up of storms to develop is in here. This area circled, the Storm Prediction Center has given an 80% chance of a severe thunderstorm watch being issued this afternoon. And even in the last 30 to 45 minutes, we're finally seeing these storms initializing here south of Raleigh, and these storms are pushing to the south, so down the I-95 corridor and eventually in towards Columbia. So we're going to be tracking more storms developing to our east, and those will be working their way westward as we head into the evening hours. Now, our models really are not all agreeing on the timeline of the storm, so I just want to show you a comparison of the models. First, this is our in-house graph model, which is not properly showing the storm potential around the metro early this afternoon. So it's started to bubble up storms already on the forecast map, and we're just not seeing that many. So as we go through the next couple of hours, although some isolated showers and storms are possible, a lot of our models hint that the better opportunity for them come in after 6 o'clock or so this evening. So a few showers and storms are out there now. Will continue through sunset and even beyond. You notice how it kind of had, that's what I want to show you, it kind of had some storms out to our east. And then as we go later into the evening, it tries to bring them into East Georgia. So that trend, the other models are picking up on, this trend of having all these storms around the metro, we're just not seeing the other models picking up on that. And based on these tower cameras, which show clouds, but we don't see really tall, dark clouds, meaning holding a lot of water in them. So I'm just not sure if it's the best model right now. Now, I want to also show you another model. This one's the HER model, which earlier was not even, it's really not even showing the storms up across the mountains. But it does have, as we go through the afternoon, it pops up more storms to our north and east up across the Carolinas. And you can see them there on forecast tracks. Some isolated storms around the metro as well, and then increasing that opportunity for showers and thunderstorms 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the evening, especially as we head past sunset. So I think I like the trend of this one a little bit better, but I wanted to show you both because when we're in this type of setup where the models are not all agreeing, I want to be as transparent as I can with you all at all the tools in the toolbox that we have available and just what they're actually showing. So we know storm chances increase the later in the evening that we go, but in the interim, it's all about this high heat and humidity, which is pretty widespread on the map. Outside in the metro area, nobody is actually in the 100-degree mark for an actual temperature, but it feels like it's above 100. Current temperature in Atlanta, 94, 96 in Athens. We showed you this feels like temperatures at the top of the hour. They were above 100 degrees for much of North Georgia. Heading through the next 12 hours, the risk of showers and thunderstorms really, I would say, ramps up more in the evening hours. Feels like temperatures outside of those storms going to be staying here in the century mark for the afternoon, and then in the 80s and 90s early on this evening. So storm chances are with us through the evening, and we're watching out for some of those to become strong or severe. Now, does the pattern change tomorrow and Friday? Well, what changes Thursday and Friday is that the temperatures come down a few degrees. But this notion of dealing with now the opportunity for showers and thunderstorms on the map each day, that's going to be sticking with us as we head through the rest of the week. So Thursday and Friday, we have level 1 risks of severe weather across North Georgia, and I wouldn't be surprised if over the weekend some of those risks continue. Let me show you a forecast track for tomorrow. This is more one of those like typical days where we start off in the morning mostly dry, and then in the afternoon these kind of scattered thunderstorms develop. Here's the model showing for the afternoon. Couple hit or miss showers and storms develop. As we lose daytime heating, they kind of fizzle out. We go into Friday, and this model has a little better opportunity for those afternoon showers and thunderstorms. Some of them widely scattered Friday afternoon and evening, and then as we lose the daytime heating, they kind of fizzle out, and we get to copy, paste, and repeat again for Saturday. So we are watching out for those storm chances right now. A 50% chance of showers and storms today. That goes down to 30% tomorrow, then back up to 40% Friday and Saturday. So really an opportunity for showers and thunderstorms each and every day, but today brings the best chance as we head into the evening. One thing that's not changing is this humidity. It is sticking with us, staying very humid through the weekend. That will lead to these afternoon shower and thunderstorm chances. And not only is it humid outside, but because we've been hot, humid, and dry for the last couple of days without something to clear all of that buildup of pollution and everything in the atmosphere, we have a code orange air quality alert for Thursday. So that means that it's unhealthy for sensitive groups if you have respiratory illness, asthma, emphysema, heart illness or something like that. Limit too much time outdoors, because even in the mornings and evenings, the air quality is actually at its worst. That's because in the overnights, as the temperatures cool down, all that stuff, that pollution gets trapped in the atmosphere. And as it's trapped in the atmosphere, it kind of makes the air quality poorer. I just got an update on my phone 1 minute ago. The National Weather Service is in the process of coordinating a new severe thunderstorm watch with the Storm Prediction Center. It will be coming out very shortly. They say that it's going to include northeast Georgia. They say that it's going to include much of east central Georgia, but likely not west Georgia. So again, what they're looking at is these thunderstorms that have developed here and then more developing up across North Carolina, and we see clouds bubbling up over here. So the watch is coming out for where there's the highest chance of these stronger severe thunderstorms through the early evening hours. If we were to see a severe thunderstorm watch for West Georgia, they say that would probably take until later on in the evening to see that come out. So we are awaiting that watch to come out from the Storm Prediction Center. It will pop up here. This is our watches and warnings graphic, and I'm actually going to put a different layer on this map. The watch is coming out.
Yeah.
Yep, I got it. I just read it. Chris Holcomb is here. We're communicating telepathically because we're all on top of it. So we'll just kind of stay on here until we get that severe thunderstorm watch, because as we hear and are being told, it will likely be coming out in the next couple of minutes. So let's just kind of recap where we stand right now, what we're looking ahead towards later on today. Outside right now, it is steamy, hot, humid outside, and this is fuel for thunderstorms. Over Atlanta right now, you can see, I mean, we've got the clouds that are, bubbling up a little bit. The bottoms of those clouds, and one of the things I like to look at, and also how tall the clouds are. They're growing a little bit, but we still have a lot of these shorter clouds. What we need to see to finally get that rain to come reaching the ground is, well, we really need the clouds to kind of explode upwards, and as they keep growing, they get heavier and heavier, and then eventually they produce showers and thunderstorms. Another live look over Atlanta. You can see the skies are looking juicy outside, but we're not quite seeing the rain coming down. Here's another vantage point. This is our traffic camera. It's actually our weather camera on top of Northside Hospital. My guess is there was something interesting this morning, traffic-wise right there. Here's another vantage point. That is our camera at Georgia Tech. And that camera shows you we've got as well that partly sunny sky outside, but not quite the storms on the map yet. But the storms will be coming, and in the interim, it is all about this heat. So the big picture heat dome, we are talking about near record temperatures and record breaking temperatures in many cases. That's centered over the mid-Atlantic down through the Carolinas today. That's where the heat is really at its worst. And I'll actually show you the feels like temperatures, because right now in Atlanta, our feels like temperature is 98. Look at the big picture. So they have gotten a little bit of relief in a place like Boston, 92 versus yesterday when that heat index was up above 100. But you can see the heat dome, the northern extent of it. 96 in Chicago right now for the feels like temperature. 96 in Kansas City, 93 in Dallas. That's really not bad for them in Dallas. 93 is not too bad. But 103 in Louisville, 104 in Raleigh. New Orleans is 90 right now for that feels like temperature. So that's where the core of the heat is. Now, that heat is going to be fuel for thunderstorms to develop later on. So we'll be watching out for those thunderstorms as we head into the evening. Here we go. So it has just populated. Here's our brand new severe thunderstorm watch. I'm going to query this watch just so we have it on the record. This is a severe thunderstorm watch until midnight tonight. So this is going to go until midnight tonight. Severe thunderstorm watch until midnight tonight, and that is for eastern Georgia. So this is not going to include the city of Atlanta itself. Okay, it does not include DeKalb County, but it does include Forsyth County. It does include Gwinnett County, out towards Walton County, Barrow County, Hull County, up through Dawson, Lumpkin, Towns, Union, Rabun, White, Habersham, Banks County, and then down to the south and east through Madison, Clark County, and also out towards Greene County and Morgan County. Putnam County as well. So severe thunderstorm watch until midnight tonight. So just to kind of recap, we're watching for storms to initialize or kickstart just to our east in the Carolinas. As these storms develop, they have a lot of fuel to become strong or severe. So we know that they have the potential to produce severe weather. So severe thunderstorm watch until midnight tonight. Again, on radar right now, if we zoom out, we have a couple of showers and storms that are to our north and east up across the higher elevations in the North Georgia mountains up through the western North Carolina region. More thunderstorms have developed here between Raleigh and Fayetteville, and it's that kind of storm complex that you see the motion of it. These storms are firing up, starting to move to the west. So, and a couple more little showers are trying to develop. So it's what develops to our east that may ride in here later on this evening and produce severe weather. Now, on top of that, we are also looking towards what may develop on top of the metro area. Will we see any for the evening commute? And we are seeing a couple of isolated showers already. Now, these are not very large showers, but they're already producing some locally heavy rain. One of those right there over eastern Gordon County. And then I just noticed, looks like we have one more shower trying to develop here, and that is just on the north side of Palmetto. On the north side of Palmetto. So that is the latest. We've got a couple of isolated showers beginning to develop now, but it is all eyes on what storm risk increases from here through the evening. Severe thunderstorm watch until midnight tonight. So tracking these thunderstorms which are beginning to develop to our northeast and especially to our east up across the Carolinas. And those are popping up near Raleigh and Fayetteville. As there's so much heat and humidity, they've really exploded in the last hour on radar. And those are going to be moving west. You can also see a couple of showers that are I just see the beginning of these towering cumulus clouds really rising up. And as we see them rising up in such an unstable environment, those storms will have the potential to become strong or severe. We are going to have an update as we track the storms developing, starting at 4 o'clock today on 11Alive News. So 4 o'clock, 5, 6, we are here for you. And also, if we notice storms popping up more around the metro before 4 o'clock, we'll hop back on here on 11Alive Plus. But again, just to kind of recap, we have a level 3 risk of severe weather east of Atlanta, and we have a severe thunderstorm watch. That severe thunderstorm watch running until midnight tonight.
Thunderstorms don't necessarily have to be severe to create major impacts. Non-severe thunderstorms create excessive rainfall, which leads to flooding, which could be dangerous, and also lightning, which could be very deadly. So we have to be very careful out there, especially when it comes to flooding. You can't really see how deep the water is or how fast it's running, and so that could cause problems. And a lot of people lose their lives trying to cross water because they think their cars are able to do that. Well, in a situation like this where you see a flooded road closed, don't try to go around that barrier, because if that water is fast enough and deep enough, it could displace your car. So we give you the old adage of turn around, don't drown. That's the safest thing to do, especially when it comes to flooding. It doesn't take much water at all when it comes to flooding. A human being can be displaced by water 6 inches deep if it's moving very fast. A car, maybe a foot. That's about it. That will displace your car, like you saw in that last graphic. Or I have an SUV, I got big tires. You think you can go through? If it's 18 to 24 inches, it can sweep your car away, or even your SUV, and you don't want that to take place at all, folks. So let's talk about thunderstorms. Well, the scariest part of a thunderstorm typically is the noise that it makes. Not the lightning itself, right? The noise that it makes. But the lightning, when it hits the atmosphere, it expands rapidly and creates a noise. Sometimes it's a low rumble, or it could be a very sharp, loud boom at times. It's the lightning that can be very, very deadly. In fact, lightning from the base of a cloud to the surface seeks to strike the nearest thing to the base of that cloud. So oftentimes we'll strike tall buildings, or a church steeple, or trees, where a lot of people like to go to shelter themselves from rain. Well, that's where we see the highest number of deaths when it comes to lightning. Also over water, if you're in a boat or in an open field, or playing baseball or playing golf, or in the yard doing a lot of work. In open spaces, that's what you want to avoid. Seek shelter by going inside a building, especially with one with a metal frame, so the lightning, when it strikes that frame or that building, it will go down the sides and it will be grounded. Stay safe out there, folks, even in thunderstorms that are non-severe.
sections of the East Coast, it's been a sweltering start to summer, leaving many Americans from Boston to the Big Apple trying to manage.
It's very hot. We feel like we're melting.
Really, really hot and really, really humid.
You checked your phone a second ago. What'd it say?
101.
More than 40 different cities recording record highs yesterday, topped by Newark at 103 and Manchester and Boston at 102. In all, 150 million under heat alerts Tuesday, stretching from Maine to eastern Texas. New York's record 99 at Central Park, partly explaining the plea from utility companies like Con Edison.
So our general request to customers during these periods is to use energy wisely. Things like set your thermostats to a comfortable temperature, but not too cool.
Voters also braving the heat in the city's mayoral primary, not at the pool, but at the polls.
The only thing hotter than New York being 100 degrees is voting.
The rising temperatures taking a toll on firefighters in Norfolk, Massachusetts, who suffered heat exhaustion.
We've had a couple firefighters, unfortunately, overcome by the heat that we had to transport.
And heat-related illness also to blame in Rhode Island, where at least 10 cases were reported at Narragansett Town Beach. Even commuters dealing with more than a few snags, dozens of buckled roads, forcing drivers to slow down. The extreme temps pushing folks to get creative and find relief from the wretched conditions. Even the animals at Black Beauty Ranch in Texas are taking extra measures to stay cool, avoiding sweltering by soaking. Families not letting the brutal heat brutalize their vacation plans.
They've been asking for ice cream like 24 hours a day, so I didn't budget enough for our ice cream on this trip, but we'll do the best we can.
Thunderstorms don't necessarily have to be severe to create major impacts. Non-severe thunderstorms create excessive rainfall, which leads to flooding, which could be dangerous, and also lightning, which could be very deadly. So we have to be very careful out there, especially when it comes to flooding. You can't really see how deep the water is or how fast it's running, and so that could cause problems. And a lot of people lose their lives trying to cross water because they think their cars are able to do that. Well, in a situation like this where you see a flooded road closed, don't try to go around that barrier, because if that water is fast enough and deep enough, it could displace your car. So we give you the old adage of turn around, don't drown. That's the safest thing to do, especially when it comes to flooding. It doesn't take much water at all when it comes to flooding. A human being can be displaced by water 6 inches deep if it's moving very fast. A car, maybe a foot. That's about it. That will displace your car, like you saw in that last graphic. Or I have an SUV, I got big tires, you think you can go through? If it's 18 to 24 inches, it can sweep your car away, or even your SUV, and you don't want that to take place at all, folks. So let's talk about thunderstorms. Well, the scariest part of a thunderstorm typically is the noise that it makes. Not the lightning itself, right? The noise that it makes. But the lightning, when it hits the atmosphere, it expands rapidly and creates a noise. Sometimes it's a low rumble, or it could be a very sharp, loud boom at times. It's the lightning that can be very, very deadly. In fact, lightning from the base of a cloud to the surface seeks to strike the nearest thing to the base of that cloud. So oftentimes we'll strike tall buildings, or a church steeple, or trees, where a lot of people like to go to shelter themselves from rain. Well, that's where we see the highest number of deaths when it comes to lightning. Also over water, if you're in a boat or in an open field, or playing baseball or playing golf, or in the yard doing a lot of work. In open spaces, that's what you want to avoid. Seek shelter by going inside a building, especially with one with a metal frame, so the lightning, when it strikes that frame or that building, it will go down the sides and it will be grounded. Stay safe out there, folks, even in thunderstorms that are non-severe.